You start.
What's my name? Okay. ¿Qué tal?
¿Qué tal, Phil? Phil and I have been we're first Twitter friends, I think.
Yes.
And then
We upgraded to text this year.
Yes.
I don't know how it happened. I was trying to remember.
Someone gave me your number in a meeting you didn't make it to. But I was delighted and I just texted in. And then we just text stupid shit since then.
Yeah. So this is our first meeting in person. So far, it's going great.
Don't fuck it up.
We were talking about your incredible True Detective season and how you came to think of that very unusual setting and storyline. You want to tell these guys a little bit of what you were telling me about how that project came to you, maybe what the expectations were and where you took it?
Yeah, because I believe that HBO, they never told me this, but I do believe that after 3 seasons made by men and white men at that, well, Carrie I think is not completely white, but then he moved on and it was mostly made by one white man. And they felt the need to, if they were going to revive it, to see what other flavors it could have. And in this exploration, I guess they bumped into Tigers Are Not Afraid, a movie I made. And
beautiful movie if you haven't seen it.
And I got a call asking what I would do with True Detective. And I'm gonna guess that when they reached out for a Mexican filmmaker, they were kind of expecting, even if it was not a fully formed thought, they were kind of thinking that it was going to be on the border and with the cartels, you know, because that it feels like True Detective-ish in a way. I can
Right, they're
see
like,
that.
this is our Narcos.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but with more handsome people, I don't know. And I was like, fuck no. I feel that as the no permission needed, we can tell and we should tell any story anywhere with any characters every single time. And so as the contrarian I am, I thought of what would be the hardest thing to impose on myself and the most painful and the most horrid experience I could think of, which is to shoot for months and months and months in the Arctic by night.
Are you Catholic? I'm Catholic.
I'm Catholic.
I do that, yeah.
I'm a recovering one. Yeah.
Suffering is my religion.
No, I looked at True Detective and it's all about the place where it happens. So what is very different from the previous 3 seasons and the Arctic spoke to me and the influence of John Carpenter and I knew that when I said Alaska, they were going to be like, huh? Which they were. And they said yes, so.
Could we shoot that in Georgia by any chance? They said yes, but one thing I think about sometimes is like the audience doesn't care about your identity, they care about your point of view. Right. And so I was trying to imagine, but you tell me for real, like how your experience, your life experience, like transposed onto those storylines. I read that you studied archaeology.
Yes, briefly.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So like you told this story about like indigenous societies, but maybe not the one that used to live underneath the city that you grew up in, but actually one that was out in the deepest, darkest part of the Arctic Circle.
Well, when I was talking about the series with Mexicans and with Latinos, I will always say that series is a Mexican TV series, through and through. Even though it happens in Alaska, even though Jodie Foster is the lead, there's an undeniable thing at the center of it, which is the clash of 2 cultures. And one that is pretty much blind to the other and just stepping all over it, and which is central to the experience of growing up in Latin America. And the other thing is the way that we relate to our death, the people we've lost and how we then, say no to the concept of losing them, that they walk with us through life. And those are the 2 things that I believe are at the center of the series. So, yes.
It makes tons of sense. It's like it's so beautiful, the idea of like we're not, like I feel like my father is American from Maine and all that side of the family is like avoid any tough conversation. And if you go to like the family grave plot, it's like it's like 12 feet by 8 feet. It's all these little headstones, and it's like we go over there and we kind of go, and then we like run away. And the idea of like death is part of life. That when someone dies, like they still are present for the living, and that's important, right? It's so lovely. And the other thing is, it's so undeniable. Like you can avoid that, but it keeps coming back up. Like people keep opening the family plot, like the tomb, and like stealing stuff in my family. And so like you can't live without it in a funny way, and you can't live without the people that lived on the land before you got there or before your ancestors got there. Like the fact that everything is so commingled. I found the show really inspiring.
Thank you. But you know, growing up half Cuban, half Maine.
Yeah.
What does that do to your soul? How do you gravitate and inhabit those two worlds? And how
you have big feelings, but you stuff them deep inside.
And are the stories you're telling have to do with that? Because I feel that your origin, and I very much understand that it started with comedy, and how does that address those deep kept secrets?
I mean, no one should feel sorry for me. I like grew up like Cuban American in Miami. I was like a fish in water, but it does make you. It's like a strange inversion where if you're like half your family is American, like my Spanish isn't as good. Like you don't fit in with the other Cubans in Miami, like where that's such a badge of pride and everybody speaks Spanish. So you're always feeling like a little bit like I don't quite fit in either place. And so, I mean, the part that's the most direct expression of that is like trying to write dialogue for Miles Morales, who like doesn't totally know which part, doesn't know where he stands. And he's embarrassed because his Spanish is almost as good as his mother wants it, but it's like compromised. And so that feeling of like, which am I? Am I like a superhero? Am I a regular kid? Am I Puerto Rican? Am I Black? Am I both? Am I American? Am I like, what is it? That is something that like I can connect with and write about. But I did not exactly suffer, but I understand that like that confusion, I suppose. And because of that, I also was like a shrimp. And so the only way I could survive high school was to be funny. So I desperately, that was my only tool. I was so little. I looked like I was 10 when I was 15. And I ran for student government and my advertising campaign was vote for Big Phil. And I had these huge posters and I wrote Big Phil as small as I possibly could in the center of a big white poster. That was the beginning.
Did you win that one?
I won vice president, and then I pushed it a little too hard the next year, and I lost president to a great person. She's now Ilana Oberstein. She's now the head of the board of trustees, so it worked out.
There you go. It's funny that the Miles Morales inhabiting the center of the place where all the lines in the universe converge. And it's not only about identity, it's about reality, right? All of those touching at the same time and trying to break him, and he's overcoming that and putting the universe back in order is, I think, a very beautiful journey. Did you need no more therapy after making that movie?
I mean, my head is scrambled eggs because of that. No, I think it's actually kind of speaks to what you were talking about your piece, is that there two thoughts come to mind. One is that like your life is so interconnected with everybody else who shares your experience, right? And you don't know them, but they have a parallel life, and your awareness of each other is really valuable, right? And it's powerful. The other thing that I think about is like the idea of like, if you change the race of Spider-Man and what language he speaks, there's someone will come out and say, you're breaking the entire universe, right? And we're going to get you because we need to hold this thing together, right? And so that was another thought, was like, when you try to do something that's from a different point of view, sometimes there is resistance, and the resistance is usually really silly. It's just familiarity, And what's so funny about that franchise, which is growing, it's the decision was so fast. Chris and I are at lunch right down the street at Chibo. I don't even know if it still stands. Amy Pascal calls. She's the head of the Columbia Pictures. Phil, I gotta make another Spider-Man. It can't be live action. Can you do a cartoon or whatever? I was like, I can't, Amy, there's been like 9 of these. I can't do one. Click. Chris and I are like ordering, like, what if it was Miles? Pick up the phone, call Amy. Amy, what if it's Miles? Who's Miles? Miles Morales. He's Black Puerto Rican Spider-Man. He's in the comics. I love it. I'll see you tomorrow. Book it. It's so fast. Those decisions, your decision, I imagine, like, you made like 3 little leaps to get to your point of view on your television show, and then a bunch of very difficult Catholic suffering years of work later, that thing comes to life. But the initial idea of like, fuck it, I'm gonna make this, that happens, I think that happens fast.
It happens in a second. And I think very much like what you're talking about with Spider-Man is I never, ever imagined that I was going to be doing True Detective of all things, which I loved that first series, the first one. And I just couldn't, you know, and a murder mystery, I love those. I grew up obsessed with Sherlock Holmes, whatnot. But every time that I saw a really good one, I was like, the way it happens to me when I watch spy movies now, that I go like, that's awesome. How do they do it? And then they say, do you want to make one? Yeah. Yes. Yes, I can.
Do you know how to make one?
I learned by making one, you know, but I didn't tell them that.
You just tell them yes.
Yes, and then you go like, how do you write a murder mystery? I really love them, but it's a huge different beast. And you learn by doing it. So was Miles the first Latino lead in what you've made? It just, were you waiting for it, or this was the right moment? How did that happen?
It wasn't so intentional, you know. It just was like, oh, that's something, you know, Chris and I always approach things like, is this something we can do well? Is this something we can, that like, I won't be bummed that someone better didn't do it? Or is it something like Los Frikis, like it's not gonna happen
Los
if we
Frikis
don't
is
work
astounding.
on it?
If you haven't seen that movie, it's just gorgeous.
Available on Amazon Prime. You know, so this was something like, well, okay, in 5 minutes, I can think of the 3 super remarkable things that we're going to do on this show. I made, you know, we made like 3 calls right away to our production designer, Justin Thompson, who's now directed the second, now directing the third. And I was like, we're gonna break cartoons. Are you up for that? And he was like, no, he chickened out, and then came back like a year later to work on the movie. You know, then we called a woman named Lindsay Duran, who's like one of our great producer and kind of our like writing guru. And we were like, I need to do something really hard. Where are you? And we sat down and tried to figure it out. And we had one nugget, which was like, Peter Parker's never been a grown-up. What if he has to train someone to be like him? And the kid is so different, and he messes it all up. And so for me, like his like Latinidad was like an amazing opportunity, but it wasn't me sitting going like, all right, I have an agenda, like how am I gonna work it in? It was really just like, I'm going to write from my experience that I can give to this character. And you know, we all do our part. I look for those series, but I look for opportunities to represent us the way I want to see us, but I'm not trying to strain. I'm just trying to follow the green lights. Do you know what I mean? And I'm trying to like, I try to give myself the grace, as you guys all should, which is like, if you're doing it, then it's going to be meaningful, and it's going to be a different point of view, and you don't necessarily have to like exclusively make a certain kind of thing.
I agree. The DNA, the fact that a point of view and a voice that carries this world is and delivers a story that connects with people is already opening doors and keeping them open all the time. a lot of the work you've done comes from stories or concepts of IP that was already there. And you turn it on its head. Very much, they call you with Spider-Man, and you found an me, myself, when I heard that there was an animated Spider-Man now, I was like, oh, for fuck's sakes.
That's it. That was our reaction.
And then everybody was like, no, you really have to see this. And it blew my mind. The Lego movie. Like, what? That's a call that if I would go like, this is going into their diary. They wanted me to make a Lego movie. There is no chance in hell of making something out of this.
We're the psychos that are like, that sounds fun.
It was just astounding.
And it's as simple as like, do I have a way in? That one was, okay, because we're animation dorks, we're like, oh, Lego, like people use Lego to make stop motion animation in their house. And the coolest thing about them is like, it's like the one toy that's like good for kids. It's good for their brains, not so good for the environment. It's going to outlive the human race and all animals. But maybe in the future, aliens can build stuff with it. But this little indestructible plastic thing, you know, that's like just comes out of like some toy maker in like this, you know, in a little town in Denmark is a tool, a creative tool. So we're like, well, what if we could make a movie that felt like I gave one of those stop motion animators in their basement, right? Like a kid and their family, like telling stories in their garage. We gave them $100 million and made a movie that was like a Michael Bay movie, but with like these little tiny things. And to me, that was like a subversive idea of like a big studio movie made with little tiny democratic pieces. And then we had this idea of like, well, what if it's like it's like a hero's journey movie where the hero is not talented, like he has no talents. Could you tell that version? Could you, like you're saying, like you like to suffer, like we like to suffer, what's a really hard challenge? And how do we, I don't know. So that is, and then what would happen if there were no barriers? Like as a kid, there's no barriers in your imagination between like, oh, that's like Marvel and that's DC and that's Star Wars, and right? And that's like the Lego that comes with the city pack. Like you don't care. You're just, everything's like commingled. And we're like, well, this would be a cool way to make a movie where like, yeah, like the rules were invented by a child. and so you have to have it both ways. You have to make it as if a kid made it up, and then you have to have it make sense so that like you want to watch it more than once. Because parents, I'm so sorry, you have to watch it so many times. I just want you to know I try to make it livable.
I watch it a gazillion times without any kids, so yeah. The constant and very astounding jump between live action and animation, and how the first thing that I've seen that you've done was Clone High. Yes. And you're going back to Clone High too. Yes, we made 2 more psychotic seasons. It was the first thing we ever made. We came to town way back in the 1900s. And we were like coming up with weird TV shows, and that thing, we made a pilot. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about today was like setbacks, and what is it that like someone so graciously read our credits, and it sounds like we know what we're doing, but at least for me, like I can give you 2 abject failures for everything that you mentioned. And I think that's important for us all to talk about. But so Clone High was basically a failed pilot that sat in the dustbin for a year and a half. And then randomly somebody called from MTV. It was like, we want to pick your show up and put it on the air. We're like, are you joking? Like that never happens. It was just like a stroke of good luck. And then kind of like what you're talking about, like, so can you guys like show run? We're like, sure we can. Can you guys direct? Absolutely. We totally know what we're doing. And you figure it out as you go. I learned to edit on Final Cut 3 or something like that. We learned to we were cutting our own animatics. We had a bunch of amazing people in Toronto at Nelvana that were working on the show. And we identified a few teammates that were we were doing something really different than that studio. So we flew up there. We
we sat down, we identified the teammates that were really kind of wanted to do something different. We found, I mean, it was like such a funny group of weirdos. And we made this very strange show. We didn't sleep for a year and a half. It comes out, it's kind of everything that I wanted it to be in terms of creatively. I was so proud of it. Kind of no one watched it. And then right around episode 8, we had a character that was a clone of Gandhi who just wanted to party. And so in India, that is very frowned upon. And so there was like a hunger strike in India, kind of like the Modi government that's in now, kind of like the awakening of that sort of like kind of strain of their politics had started, and that kind of nationalism. So they were like, there was it became like a political canard. Anyway, it just so happens that the head of Viacom is in India, in the offices while they're protesting outside, and he can't get out. So they canceled our show so fast. And I had to take so many SSRIs just to like sleep at night because I was so upset. And it was like our most important success. It was the thing I learned the most doing. And it was an immediate failure. And I immediately I didn't know what I was going to do. Thank God for Luis Guzman, who had a sitcom that they let us write on. That was like our fallback job.
But let's talk about failure, because talking with Del Toro, with Guillermo del Toro, not Benicio. So
El Maestro.
Yeah. El Maestro, every time that I end up talking to him, we do talk about the failures, right? The many, many projects that fell apart, died in your hands, and almost took you with them because, God, they hurt. And how their dead bodies feed the surviving ones. You know, it's that horror and pain which I think gives us the fuel to. It can be either or both. I can make it happen, and the other part, which also really works, which is fuck them, I will do it. Yeah. And both work, you know. So let's talk about the many times that you said, I can't do this anymore.
I have a huge chip on my shoulder, and it's growing, you know. And it's so it's billboard material. It just makes you fired up. It just makes you want to prove everybody wrong. You know, like we got shit canned from Star Wars, and I was like, let's go. Let's make the best animated movie of the year. You know, and that has to be, I don't know what that is. I don't know if I was taught that. I don't know what, but it's that, and everyone in this room is the same way, and you're the same way. It's like you get knocked down, you get up. Like you have something that made you, you know, leave your hometown and move. What's it like moving to such a small town, by the way? From Mexico City to little Los Angeles.
It's very, very small, and I just have to go back to Mexico and breathe the smoke from time to time, and just to be able to come. No, I
to feel at home.
Yeah. The fun thing about Mexico City is that suddenly everybody likes it. Suddenly everybody wants to go.
I know. All those people from Williamsburg moved into that little neighborhood.
Yes, now you don't hear Spanish on the streets. It's
I bet.
More Spanish here, while they let Spanish.
Do you know anyone who can get me a passport in case things kind of go, belly up around here?
If this is a proposal, I'll consider it.
Let's do it.
No, it's a very. I'm sure that everyone is talking about this in these panels, and it's necessary. It's a really fucked up moment to be a Latino, but it's also the most important one. And we're trying to make things that are fun and that we would like to watch, and it's very, very important. But how do we respond in this moment? And it can't be immediate. That's the interesting thing. But how do we respond to this historical moment and in the stories we tell? And it doesn't have to be in your nose about it, but there's a way to speak about the voices that are silenced. I think that Los Frikis is such an interesting exploration of that space.
Oh, you're very kind. So I produced this movie called Los Frikis about about. Oh, I'm glad you guys liked it. That's everyone who saw it. It's a lovely movie by my friends Mike and Tyler, and they brought us a script. And this is a true story about punk rock musicians in the 90s in Cuba whose music was outlawed. And it was during the special period. We're now in another special period. We're in the middle of the largest mass migration from Cuba in its history, 1 million people and counting in the last 2 years. But in the 90s, it was an equally difficult time, and these young people injected themselves with HIV so they could go to these sanitariums where they were cordoning people off, and they lived there like it was like summer camp because they believed they would be cured, and until they got sick. And so this is like a super, imagine me, I had just signed a overhead deal with Universal Pictures, and imagine me calling poor Donna Langley and being like, have I got a picture for you? It's about AIDS. It's all in Spanish. She's like, we have something called focus features, and you should talk to them. And it turned out like it wasn't for anybody. I mean, we found independent financing and got an amazing crew from Mexico City and went to the DR and shot it. We flew 25 Cuban actors like from Cuba. Many of them are now in the United States. Because if you give someone 30 grand, that's a way to get 2 people across the border, or was. And so that picture is about, so we were like, what a depressing movie. We have to make this, this is a long way around to the answer of your question, which is what do we do? I want this to be affirming. I want this to be about like 2 brothers who love each other. In the story, one brother injects and the other one doesn't and lies and says that he does so they can be together. And so this like secret that he's holding is like a big underlying thing in the story. But I wanted to see people, I want to see affirming stories. You're a horror director. You can show me how shitty everything is.
Yes, but
your stories are affirming. Like I find you have such an interesting relationship to scoundrels, right? Because you have like in Tigers Are Not Afraid, like you have this like big-hearted person who's in a world of scoundrels, and yet all the scoundrels have desires, they have frailties, they're afraid to kill. That's such an honest, to me, a more insightful way to talk about things that are frightening.
The thing is, I grew up in a country and in a family, as a Mexican family, that watched telenovelas when I was growing up. And it was kind of, my dad, who was a socialist and an intellectual, was so mad that my mom and her family were sitting us down to watch telenovelas. But that was playing in Mexico the entire day and into the night, prime time. And then when I got a job in Mexico, my first job was at the Mexican Sesame Street, Plaza Sésamo. And that was fun. And then the next job I could get, because there was no production in Mexico at that point, was writing telenovelas. So you grew
That's
up in
cool.
Mexico, yeah. I wrote a bunch, thing. Yeah. And aside from the telenovelas, Mexican cinema, the golden age Mexican cinema, how many of you have Mexican ancestors? There's a few of us. So when I say Torito, you know what I mean, right? Okay. So melodrama is deep in our bones, and it's not, same as Catholicism, you can't be cured of it. So even though I love horror, and I had these ambitions and this idea of myself as an artsy, gritty director that is gonna go dark and then darker, and there's no hope at the end. And when I start writing, I'm gonna be that bitch. And then it just happens, and it comes, and there's a tear scene. And I fought it for a long time, because my first paid job in cinema was for rom-coms. And I was like, I'm not that woman, but I am. I am. So I found a way to just embrace it and know that I'm a softie. Even though I like really dark shit, I'm a softie. So it's that weird combo, I think.
But don't you think that like every person I ever met that had a lot of tattoos was a big old sweetheart?
Well, I have some.
You have some? It's like the more the more of it there is, the more you're saying like, hey, I've been hurt and I'm alive and I made it. Yeah. And so to me, it's like that darkness always comes, like even like GDT, like all your great horror directors, like Sam Raimi, like Drag Me to Hell. Have you seen Drag Me to Hell? Like that movie's about like I'm nervous to meet my boyfriend's parents.
Deep down it is.
Do you know what I mean? Like to me, like the greatest horror movies are about like personal frailties and whether I have what it takes to overcome them, right? So terror is like really it's like underlying sweetness. I don't know. You started life as a writer. I started life as a writer. When I don't know what to do, I just make everyone in the scene nice. Even if it's like a scene where like we're breaking up, I just make them like, even if it's a lot of conflict or like I have to kill someone in the scene and like I make them nice, like I'm sorry. You know, because I feel like that is maybe that's just the way that I can access that stuff. But I find that often gets you somewhere that you don't want to go. Chris and I produced this movie, Mitchell's vs. Machines. And in the movie, like there's the movie when we came to it, it's brilliant filmmakers that worked on it. It was a movie about two people in a father and a daughter in a fight. And it was about them fighting. And together we turned it into a movie about a father and a daughter trying to get along. And that is such a minute distinction, but it makes all the difference to the audience and on camera. They have something to root for. And ultimately you're proving that we can be better. And so when you ask me what my personal response is to like, what do we do in this moment? I want to prove on screen that we can be better. I want to help people imagine goodness. I want them to see it, people helping one another. I want to make a movie about those Haitians in Ohio that made that town way fucking better and brought the economy back, right? Like to me, that is a target of opportunity that we can demonstrate. And then the other thing, I'm also trying to like Gloria Kellett, I'm just trying to make as much crap as I can and get it and create as many jobs as I can and like find as many opportunities to say something as I can because we're lucky and we have the opportunity. At the other, I lost my train of thought. Hold on.
Open
ADD
door.
brain. Right. But I guess I'm trying, I'm trying to, I know that if we can make hits and I have some experience making that, and it is all about delivering the audience something that they don't get anywhere else, which is these days is harmony, right? And so we made a movie about like an alien and Ryan Gosling, and the basic premise of the movie when we came aboard was like, can adult men make friends? If the galaxy depends on it.
If the galaxy depends on it, yeah, I guess.
Right, and in that book, if you've read it, it's like all about like people around the world coming together to do something really hard. So the other thing was like, I want to hear as many languages, I want to see as many people from as many different countries. We cast Sandra Hüller. Like I want to feel that like Europe and America and China and Africa are all coming together to like do something because I want people to at least see that is possible or imagine that it's possible.
Yeah, I during the many interviews that you do to put something out into the world, I heard myself saying something smart and I was like, oh, I'm going to remember that. So I'm going to tell you that because it's the one smart thing I've said, which is that we all have a soul agenda. And I think you need to discover what it is. And once you do, just let it speak. And it doesn't matter the particulars of the story you're making, the soul agenda is going to come across. Yeah. And it's just a matter of being quiet for a moment until it's so obvious in front of you that the stories that you're always trying to tell, because we're storytellers, they all have something in common. What is that thing? What is your sole agenda? And just be honest about it. And don't make shit that speaks against it. You're going to hurt yourself.
Yeah, I mean, my 2 cents is you can't direct out of your personality. Like, I want to, like, my set personality is like kind of bashful and funny, like I'm trying to fit in with everybody, right? I can't go in there with like, you know, a cowboy hat, you know, like yelling and like a megaphone. Like some people can, like really does that and everybody loves him, right? So what's your set personality? Like, what is that like for you?
Listen, when I started with Night Country, I was fucking terrified to direct Jodie Foster, right? It's, and she's a scary lady, let me tell you. I love her, but she's a scary lady. And she's afraid
I would say, does she suffer fools?
Yeah.
I doubt it.
No, not at all. So she comes with her whole height, which is, she's tiny. And she stands in front of me and goes like, what is your method to directing actors? And I was like,
I don't know. What's your method of acting that you like?
I was like so fast through my mind, just trying to think blank, blank, blank. And I was like, I don't have one. I don't have a method. And this is the first time that I realized that. I was like, just you get to the scene and you see what the actor brings, and one actor is going to have one technique and the other another, and the other one no technique, and you're gonna try to make it work. That's my technique.
How did she respond? Did she look at you like those fish look at Albert Brooks in Finding Nemo? He tries to tell a joke.
No, she was like, I think she appreciated the honesty.
Yeah.
And then she got to have fun with it because it was up to every scene and depending on the actor in front of her. And it's all about having fun with it and making the scene do something that you didn't expect the scene to do. And finding a spark that is not there. You're right, as we were saying, because we both write, you write as good as you can. You push that paper all the way to the very last draft, but it should still not be good enough, and it's going to become what it's going to become on set. And you're going and pushing for that extra mile that is going to go. And sometimes you fail, often you fail, but a few times you get it right, and something unexpected and beautiful happens. And that's, so my persona in the set, I'm a child because I was a geek and I was lonely and I was bullied and I didn't have a lot of friends when I grew up. I decided to make movies to have friends. So I go there and it's the one space where you can get together with a bunch of adults and some kids sometimes and go like, let's pretend that this was an Arctic station and all the guys disappeared. Go. And people give you money for that shit, which is, so that's my set.
That's lovely. That is such a lovely thought that you are like all like playing together. And there is a type of person that like they are compelled to do that they care. My 2 cents. Like the best HODs. There was a woman, the second unit script coordinator on our last movie. She was like, I'm so sorry. I had to go in there and tell him that the thing, I just couldn't live with myself. And I said, well, that's because you're a filmmaker. And because a filmmaker can't help themselves, they have to go. And you strike me as someone that like, you can't help yourself. Tell me about that, like in the context of that, like you have so much confidence. Like to me, that's a move of confidence to be like, I wrote this script, I worked my tail off on it, and now we're gonna like maybe throw it out in take 2 and just see what happens, right? And be open-minded to like what this MMA fighter, badass person has to say about this moment, what Jodie Foster has to say about this moment, et cetera, et cetera. Like, tell me about did you always have that? In other words, you were always trying to bring people together? Did you learn that?
Well, I think we all go through a learning curve. And listen, you have, I think, experience way more vast than mine in actually getting to set. I've only directed 4 movies and 1 TV series. Oh, and a couple of episodes for someone. Never do it again, me, myself. But my first movie, I was petrified because you've been fighting so hard, right? And then they finally give you the car keys and you go, but I don't really know how to drive. And you have to pretend. And this was Mexico in the early 2000s, and it's not an industry. It was not an industry very used to women, and you walk into a set all male, and it's your first movie. Everybody knows it. Warner Brothers was producing it, and you for me was like, I'm going to know exactly every shot like masters do. And so I had this storyboard, and it was like the camera goes here, and you see this. And it was so boring. It was terrible, and it was sad, and it was lonely. And I did it for 1 week.
Yeah.
And at the end of that week, and the scenes were not even good. And at the end of that week, my first AD, who was this lovely guy, he's a director now in Mexico, and a producer, Marco Polo Constance, he came to me and said, "You are not enjoying this." And I was like, "No." And he was, "You're wasting possibly the best experience that you're going to have in your life." He was right. And you should just start having fun. Throw that away and have fun. And I heard him. So Monday the next week, I decided that fuck it. And I was going to have fun, and I was going to make it happen there. And I never went back. And every time that I tried to shoehorn something into a vision for me, and I do respect massively the masters of cinema who have the movie completely formed in their head, right? Like it's there. And the trick is, how do they get it out of the skull and into the world? That's amazing. And that's a magic trick I will never master. And I stopped trying. So I do something else. I have fun with it. And then you make these movies, and it's a great experience. And then you end up with a movie to remember that awesome period in your life when you were hanging with your friends. So that's what I do it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Also, my experience, you get the benefit of more than one brain on the show. Like
smarter people than you most of the time.
Like, just admit it. Like, you get on the set and everyone on the set is more experienced than you. Like, our first movie was an animated movie. We get in there and everyone in the room is more experienced, and half of them think they should have been picked to direct it. And all you can do is beg for their help. If you try to big dog people, again, maybe other people can do it, but it's not for me. And I find that we get so much out of people because the minute they realize that they have a voice and they get you give them a point of view on, this is what I want to accomplish, or this is what the story is about. You know, the presence of like the dead amongst us, right? Then help me bring something to that. People they'll give you everything.
Yes. I think that the biggest trick for me personally, but I find this in common with a bunch of directors, is the subtle difference and knowing the difference between this idea or bunch of ideas that I'm receiving right now are a good idea, or my idea was better. Yeah. So the knowing when to listen and when to say no, that's the one trick, you know, and you get better at it. You get better at knowing and sticking your guns and picking your battles, and you get more flexible to maybe I should be softer on this and try what you're saying. Yeah. And in the constriction of time that you have with these productions, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like I try to be uncompromising but not inflexible. Mm-hmm. I'm lucky because I have a partner who's got, luckily, not a clone of me, and so we have different points of view, and sometimes it's, you know, it unlocks something. And usually our best stuff is because, like, we were at Loggerheads, and then we both we have a process where like, well, I can't force you to do this thing. Like, let's think of something else, a third thing, and it's almost always better.
So I wanted to ask you the process of creating with someone as a creative partner for a long time. How does that work? It's so interesting. I can't imagine it.
It's a total pain in the neck, and it is one of the great. It's our greatest strength. It's like a family. He's like my brother, and we every once a year we have to like have a fight and then stop and affirm our love for each other and then get back to work, and so it's an honor. That's all I can say. It's like how I feel about all our great collaborators is like, you're so lucky to be around somebody that is smart and challenges your thinking, and yeah, it's the best. I really recommend it. But also a big part of it is like, that was a crazy meeting, right? Like that thing he said, that was fucked up. Yes, it was fucked. Thank God. Like it just keeps you from getting gaslit all the time. So it's really helpful. But yeah, it's hard. You have to share. And like the biggest fight we ever got in was like, we're on the beach in San Juan in Puerto Rico. And I'm like, I think the camera should be there. And he's like, I think it should be there. And we like almost came to blows. Because it's totally subjective, like where it should be. They would work either way, it would work great. But we're both, uncompromising. So if we both feel deeply like that's not gonna get what we need, then that's a tough afternoon.
As a creative couple, there's one that is like the rational one and one that is the demented one, or are both demented, or do you take turns?
The only thing that is tough is that like, in any other situation, like Chris would be the messy one, but I'm even messier. And so like any other situation, Chris would be the emotional one, but I'm slightly more emotional. And the thing that happens is like, if he gets ticked off to the point where like he's not being productive, I go into a completely different personality type where I'm suddenly like Joe Cool. I'm like, great, we can make this work. I think we all share the same vision, we're trying to accomplish the same thing. Let's just go back to our corners and we'll all work it out. And so it's once a year that happens, and I'm so grateful to be reminded that I have that capacity. But no, we are two glow-in-the-dark brains. And we went to school together. We have so much of a common frame of reference and a common language now that like, I don't really have to ask him. I can guess what he thinks and I can jump in and give a thought. And 99% of the time, like it's something he's going to roll with. So that's just like, that's the other thing we talked about in the green room is like, for young filmmakers, like stick with your people. If you can hold on to your crew, those relationships that you build up over time are so darn valuable. Even if that's like an A- crew person or HOD, like, but they're your A-, that's an A+. Because your connection and your relationship is the whole bag. So that's one thing that I've learned from Chris is that like, it's not just, and I'm sorry, I'm in this like house that was built by the auteur theory. But in my experience, it is not a singular person's vision. It is the conversation that is the product. The conversation I have with Chris, this conversation, this one, the one you have with Jody, that is the product. And out of that conversation comes the movie. And if you're a producer, you got to produce the conversation, not produce the filmmaker. That's my 2 cents.
We will now wrap, but like now or 5 minutes or just wrap. Oh, yes, now. Okay. So yeah, we were too into this madness.
I could talk to you forever.
Me too. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.